Hello YouTube. So I have a little bit of a different video to show you here today, and that's on this new toy that I picked up. It is the Coleman UT400. It's also known as the Hisun HS400, although it does have slightly different options and abilities, but generally the same machine. Now these Coleman units are usually sold at stores like Princess Auto here in Canada, or Tractor Supply in the States. And with that comes pros and cons. Now, some of the pros are you get them at a cheap price. I mean, I think this thing is listed in the States for $6,999, and here in Canada around the $8,000 mark on the Princess Auto website. But the downside to that is it's probably assembled at Princess Auto and not by a mechanic, and that probably leads to the majority of issues. Or it's assembled at home if you just got the delivery of the unit and you have to do your own pre-delivery inspection. Now, these machines that are made by Hisun shouldn't be dismissed just because the fact that it's an offshore brand. Hisun is the OEM supplier for many big name companies like Cub Cadet, and they also supply parts for companies like Yamaha. So yeah, it shouldn't be dismissed just because it's an offshore brand. And overall, the unit does seem very well built. Now, there are some cut corners, and I did have some initial issues. I didn't actually buy this brand new from Princess Auto. I bought it with about 17 kilometers on it. Now, the first person who bought it from Princess Auto, they returned it because they couldn't get it to run right. And I guess it ultimately stopped starting altogether. The second person who went to Princess Auto and bought it as a clearance item, they never got it started. No matter how much starter fluid they poured into it, how many times they checked the fuel injection system, they just couldn't get it to go. Now, before I bought it, I went through it with kind of a fine-tooth comb and found a few things. Number one, the spark plug was severely fouled. The person tried to clean it, but once you foul one of those spark plugs that badly, it's not gonna run. You're gonna have to throw out the spark plug and get another one. I highly recommend going with an iridium spark plug, and that's what I did in this case. Now, I got it home, threw in the iridium spark plug, started up, no problem. Took it for a ride around the block, and it sounded really rough. It wouldn't go over 10 kilometers an hour without cutting off the fuel. So I went back to the drawing board. I read the manual. Now, what the manual says is if you don't have the seat belts plugged in, it's got a safety feature that will cut the fuel. So that is most likely the reason why the spark plug fouled in the first place. My guess is that they didn't have the seat belt plugged in, trying to get it over 10 kilometers an hour. It feels like a fuel delivery issue when the engine tries to cut fuel to it to stop it. Like, it's just jerking forward and backward. It just feels like it's starving for fuel. So they probably figured it's something much worse than it actually was, instead of just plugging the seatbelt. So what did I do? Plugged in the seatbelt. It ran great. Now, the next issues that I found with it is that it seemed to be like really clunky and rattly and that type of thing. So I got out the old trusty grease gun, and I started going over the machine and trying to find as many grease zerks as possible. And every time I found a grease zert, I ended up eliminating an unwanted noise. And that's a really important distinction, because don't forget, these things are coming without a pre-delivery inspection like you would get from, you know, a well-known local brand, where the mechanic's gonna go over it top to bottom and make sure everything's ready to go. In this case, as I've been finding the grease zerts, noises have been going away, so I'm pretty happy with that. Now, my first impression of the machine is it seems structurally really well built. Solid steel, square steel frame, beefy tires, nice plastics. I actually sat in an Arctic Cat Prowler 500, which is also known as the Tracker Off-Road 500S. And my initial impression sitting in this machine, although it is a smaller machine, was that it felt a little bit better quality than the Arctic Cat. Arctic Cat is also one of those companies that although they manufacture under the Arctic Cat name, they're really a Kimco machine, another Chinese offshore machine. Nothing wrong with that. I actually really like Kimco, and I'll probably end up buying one in the future. But it's just letting you know that just because the name on the brand says it's one thing doesn't mean it actually is. So yeah, fit and finish of the machine seems pretty nice. It's got a full steel front bumper. It comes with a really nice winch. I actually had to use that winch to get it up on my trailer before taking it home, because like I said, it wasn't running. It has horns, liquid cooled radiator. Take a look inside here. Really beefy A-arms, nice solid axles. You can just, well, that one's already unhooked. Pop the hood. You see you've got easy access to your headlights, easy access to the radiator if you need to clean it. There's your reservoir down there for coolant, your reservoir for brake fluid. You've got your box here. I forget what you call it, but it's for transferring power to the winch. Nice and high and easily accessible. This machine also comes standard with some other things aside from the winch. It comes with a really nice split windshield. It comes with seemingly decent quality plastic roof. It's got mirrors. It's got turning signals. Turn that on here. Turning signals, brake lights, high beams, low beams. It's got four-way flashers. How do I get that to work? There we go. You pull it out, four-way flashers. I don't know of any other machine except maybe CF Moto that comes with all this kind of stuff stock, unless you're paying, you know, tens of thousands of dollars. It's got a horn. So yeah, it's pretty impressive on first look. It's got a full steel bed with gas assist shock. It's got off-road tires right from the go. They seem pretty beefy. They've managed to get me through the snow and up and down the ditches, no problem. It comes with 2 seat belts, gas pedal, brake pedal, 4-wheel drive with lock. Now let's go talk about a little bit about the interior of this before we take it for a drive. Now we've already gone over some of the electronics that it comes with. The winch cable, I don't know if you can see it on the GoPro, would plug into that little port down there, and it would sit inside this bracket, which I guess needs to be tightened. You've got your 4x4 selector here, so when it's raised, it's in 2-wheel drive. When you push it in, you'll hear an actuator go, and it'll go in the 4-wheel drive. You flick this switch over, and then another actuator puts it into 4-wheel lock. So very simple to use. I don't know if the GoPro can pick up on that sound, but very simple to put in the 4-wheel drive. It's also got a really nice display. Now here's some things that I don't like about it, and that's the shifter. Now the shifter itself leaves a lot to be desired. It doesn't really feel like it clunks or locks into place. It feels like if you hit a big bump, it might just pop out of gear. Now that hasn't actually happened, but that's just my impression of it. Lots of info on the display, the kilometers, the speedometer, a pack. Really, it's nowhere near going to get 70 miles an hour. I think this thing tops at about 38. It's got a parking brake. This is the parking brake here, and this is the lever to release it. Comes with a couple of these nets. Now they're pretty much useless. They wouldn't keep you in the machine if you took a corner too tight. I'll go around the other side. If you took a corner too tight, you would just fall outside of it. I mean, it's not actually keeping you inside the unit by any means. There's your gas tank here. I'm going to turn the engine off for a second so we can talk about the engine itself. So one of the big complaints about these machines that I read online was the fact that after a few hundred kilometers and dusty conditions, all of a sudden you're running into issues with fuel injectors. And on the older high sun units and Coleman units, they didn't come with an inline fuel filter. Now this one, as you can see, does have an inline fuel filter. It'll also have a strainer in the gas tank itself, which is a big plus. Down here you'll also see that it has a oil filter, which some of the older machines didn't. That is another big plus. We'll look at the drive shaft down there. It's got Zert fittings on the drive shaft. It's got Zert fittings all over this machine, really. The shocks are adjustable. I think there's 5 positions on the front and rear shocks. But overall, yeah, it does feel like a well-made machine. Now let's go around the other side. Over here, you'll see access to the spark plug. And like I said, even if you don't have any problems with the original NGK, I highly suggest pulling that NGK out and putting an iridium or an E3 spark plug in it. It'll save you lots of headaches if you ever do foul the plug. They're just a lot more resistant to the fouling. That's just my opinion of it. What else do we have to look in here today? As you can see, it does have a full it has a full skid plate on the bottom. It also has these nice mud guards to protect mud kicking up from the tires and packing in underneath the seat. Underneath the seat, you'll have access to your fuel pumps. You'll have access to the fuel tank. Yeah, so I'm gonna turn the key so you can hear the fuel pump turn on, hopefully. So if the GoPro picked that up, that noise you heard was the fuel pump priming. Now once it's primed, you got to put your foot on the brake, turn the key again, fires right up. Now the manual suggests that whether it's hot or cold, you let her run for a bit just to warm up before you drive. Now this thing is already warmed up because I have been driving it around a bit. So yeah, let's take it for a little bit of a cruise and see what it does. Right now we are in 2-wheel drive. We are not in 4-wheel drive. So I just put it in 4-wheel drive. Once you push the button to put in 4-wheel drive, you'll see that it'll be flashing on the left hand side here, showing that's in 4-wheel. I'm not putting in lock right now. as you can see, with the seatbelt disconnected, it feels like there's a fuel delivery problem and that's misfiring. Put the seatbelt back on. Problem solved. So, as you can imagine, that would be very unsettling for somebody who just bought this machine and brought it home and couldn't understand why their brand new Coleman was not running right. A couple additional things I forgot to mention off the bat was this does come with a 2-inch receiver, and it also comes with a reducer here as well. Now, some of the things that I noticed on the machine that I thought were kind of lacking in quality. Now, like I said, the majority of this machine seems to be a well-built, strong quality unit, but there are some things like, you know, gasket paste, as opposed to, I'm guessing that there's no actual gasket, like solid rubber gasket in there in the rear transfer case. I'm not sure if that's normal or not, but that's something that did catch my eye. Another thing that I didn't mention on this machine is that, unlike the Hisun HS400, this does not have a high and a low gear. It just has what I would call a low gear. Now, that's more than enough. I mean, they say it'll top out about 38 kilometers an hour. I haven't really tried hitting that yet because it's still in break-in mode, and one of the things that the manual does explicitly state is not to try and goose it too much during that initial break-in. You know, give it some time. Yeah, it does not have a high gear, so don't be surprised when you can't find one. Overall, I would say I'm cautiously optimistic that this will be a quality, long-lasting machine. And take your patience, read the forums, and don't assume just because it's an offshore brand that it's going to be a complicated repair. It may not be at all. Well, I hope you found this video somewhat informative, because really the only videos that I can find on these machines are promo videos or absolute hate videos. And honestly, the reviews are not mixed on it. When you go to Princess Auto website, or when you go to Tractor Supply store, they're predominantly positive reviews. Now, when you do the whole search by negative review, sure, there's going to be people who are pissed off and angry. You're going to find that with any brand. If you put into the equation the low cost, the fact that you didn't have a mechanic PDI it, this could really be for a do-it-yourself person a really good solid buy. And I would encourage you to not be afraid to try one out. I hope you like this video. I know it's a little bit different than the normal ones I do, but please subscribe to my channel, and Merry Christmas and all the best.